Yes, it's recording, thank goodness. Also, I just got a call from my mum. You see, where did my attention just go? Okay, and you could see that I started going to the past, and I started thinking about my mum. Did it again. Slightly different way this time, because I'm verbalizing it as well. So even when we actually go over a memory, we're altering it. Okay, because our attention has got pressure, as it were. It's like the wind on the surface of the sea. It's looking at the sea, it's trying to look at the sea, but it's also the wind's going and affecting it in some form. And depending on the force of our will, we can actually affect our memories significantly. Right, but if we're just being attentive to it in this kind of secondary attention, not like primary attention, in this secondary attention we can be much more gentle with things, which means that we can actually be present to what is going on now. Well, there's little attention wandering off to other things. So actually it's very, very present. That's what it means. It means that you're very, very present to what is going on now. So in this case, it's me just in this little room, and I can't be present and respond to you. I can't actually do that through this medium. I might be able to if we did like Skype chat or something or other. But there's still a delay and stuff, and there's lots of cues that are missing regarding physical, actual, real signals in real life. You know? This is still just a representation. However, given the fact that we're communicating like this, what can we do to improve our communication? And for me, it's you've got to try it yourself. You've got to like do recordings. You've got to do some Jackson, and perhaps do videos as well. This is my first kind of experiment trying to do this. So, right, attention. Most people, I think, their attention is quite shallow. That means that they're not present, but they're kind of behind that quite a bit. And they're thinking about things, maybe about the person that's in front of them. Maybe they're kind of judging them. That means that they're kind of associating with things that they've experienced in the past, good or bad. People might also, but they know they don't do it for too much. If you do it for too much, that's quite deep. It starts getting into deep stuff. Okay, and most people don't take that time when they're meeting people to go off into deep thought. Okay, and that's quite a reasonable thing to do with your attention. Is that, you know, you're listening to blah blah blah, but you might actually go off on your own thinking and then go, okay, and then return back to what on earth am I talking about? Do you see? That happens, all right? But again, that's actually better. That's better because you're actually taking a little flight off, and it's actually a little bit longer than this very short term shallow, where the person's just going and just worrying about things. And it's just kind of like that. Okay, it even sounds like shallow sea. Right. Whereas if somebody goes off on their own thought, my brother does that a lot. I managed to, in my experience, maybe 3 times, but really once. Okay, 3 times. Okay, 3 to 7 times. All right, it's sliding. Okay, once I absolutely know. I kind of stopped him on his tracks, and he was actually, his attention was following what I was talking about. Once. My brother. Okay, because I'm quite sensitive, all right? And so I can tell whether somebody's attention is actually, you know, coming with me or not. And Ricardo's so good at getting people's attention, he doesn't even have to check whether somebody's actually being attentive. Because they are. So that means it allows him to pursue his own line of thinking like hugely. And it kind of feeds back to the person being attentive. And there's a beautiful cycle that my brother does, all right, regarding people's attention. It's phenomenal. He's written some books that are just like, they're pretty phenomenal. But in comparison to actually who he is, he's like, yeah, it's where it comes from, you see. It's quite interesting. Anyway, but I only managed to get him once, really, to kind of like stop and follow what I was talking about. Because normally when I'm talking, people go off. Okay, whatever. Well, what he does, he has the tendency to go off and think his own thought. Okay, and usually because it's quite significant and he's, you know, it's quite interesting ideas, he kind of would rather follow his own thought than other people's. Okay, and that's quite reasonable. He's becoming aware of that a little bit more, I suppose, and he's kind of having a little bit more fun following other people's thoughts. But still, yeah, the way he's wired is really pretty useful in our society, the way he is wired. Anyway, attention. Words have their own, I wouldn't call it life. They're like vectors. Okay, so it's like a gun, all right? A gun. I mean, a gun is not a bad thing. It's a device, shoots a little projectile out. It's kind of useful if you're being attacked by a huge bear or something or other. Self-defense, it's pretty, it could be very, very useful. You've got your kid roaming around, down on the fields, having a nice time, and a bear comes, and you're like, what the hell? I do want to protect my child. I'm not trying to go out into the wilds and not living out there, not to I've got certain spaces that hopefully the wildlife kind of like stays there quite happily. But kind of when it encroaches mine, I do want to make sure. Is that reasonable? Is that fair? Yeah, okay. But that means we need vast spaces which are wild to make it really fair. Okay. Now, so this bullet, it's kind of useful. This gun is quite useful. However, it's obviously used to shoot other monkeys that people are not very happy with. Okay, so, and you've got nuclear bombs and stuff like that, it's not so good. All right, however, the actual gun itself is not actually bad, it's just the use to which it's put. Attention. Words are kind of like guns or any kind of tool. They have a certain function. They have a certain direction, vector, magnitude. And what I'm using with my mind, my attention, is trying to use whatever the stream of words that are coming out to get to a point. And that's what traditional ways of communicating are. Put to a point. Conclusions. Some arguments, conclusion. To the point. However, there are other ways of us communicating which is more like this. It's a cycle. And things improve perhaps as we go around the cycle. Gives us a chance, come back around, you're like, oh yeah, I've done this before, okay, get better at this. Kind of, okay. Are you trying to get to a point? Trying to go in a certain direction perhaps with this cycle. The cycle is kind of like that, but it's actually going that way. If it's a spiral, it's going forwards in time. So this is, for example, a circle, thought, or whatever it is, but it's going forwards each time. So we kind of got a direction. Oh, we get to a point. But there are cycles which we're part of that we can't actually kind of point. Okay, so words have effect, and yet we somehow or other influence them in such a way that we can actually communicate. What does that mean? What does that mean? Share thoughts. Thoughts. Now, thoughts are slightly different from words. Thoughts are more like clusters of words, feelings, memories, images. Words are just... You can produce models of these concepts with words. In the same way that if you think mathematics is a language, and it kind of is, the simplest thing is to say, for example, x. Well, simplest. But in terms of a language, it is kind of 2 plus 3 equal to 5. Sorry, that was a bit rude of me. 2 plus 3 equals 5. Okay? Now that's a sentence. Okay, do you want to do a bit more math for this? It's quite interesting. Have I got your attention? Is this valuable enough?